Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Marc and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. I'm your host, Justin Wolf, joined as always by my co-host, Marc, and today we have a guest, Scott, joining us as well, so we're looking forward to hearing his story. But before we get into that, Marc, how are you doing, big guy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Better now. Like I said, whenever I'm with you, man, it just makes a smile on my face, and really look forward to you just providing those updates on what to expect outside when we look outside our windows here. So, how's that weather looking? What's the season's bringing us?
Well, calendar's turning over here to May 1st, man. We're getting closer and closer to summer. So that's a good thing. Weather's warming up. We're starting Mental Health Awareness Month tomorrow. So that's always exciting. So got a lot of good things happening. NAMI has their gala on May 17th. Okay. Their big gala. So put a little plug in for them. It's a great event. At a hotel in Naperville. They're going to have silent auction and all that stuff. So a lot of things happening in conjunction with Mental Health Awareness Month this year.
Definitely. And as we know, when the weather starts warming up a little bit, man, the sleeve monster tends to hit your wardrobe. So we can't wait to see those sleeveless tees making an appearance in one of our upcoming episodes here to showcase just the time you put in the morning at the gym. So,
I just ordered a bunch of t-shirts and tank tops on Amazon for the summer podcast just for you.
God, I hope they're all mediums.
They're all medium, and I want to pay homage to you, so they're all salmon colored and pink colored and all that stuff, just like what you were.
Yeah, it's what the audience loves. So I'm glad you're really listening to what our listeners want to see more of, Marc, and really delivering on that.
I'm expanding my color scheme. Instead of wearing all black like I normally do, I'm going to be a little more colorful this summer because
you might also lift your mood. Look at that.
Exactly.
Salmon-colored, sleeveless tees. Oh, sounds like you're going to be living your best life.
Feeling more confident in my skin now.
And I'm sure you might order an extra one, and Scott could get one of those salmon-colored, medium cut-off tees, so he could also follow you into these bright, warm summer months.
YOLO, you live once, man.
Love it. It's fantastic. So
it's time to get this now.
Yeah, I cherish these moments. These are great. So
I know.
Don't start blushing on me, Marc. Just don't start blushing. Lost for words. Scott's got his tongue. So, Scott, thank you for joining us today, man. We're happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely. So I know you have a lot of wisdom and insights to share, and I think that's really why we want to kind of reach out. We are really honored to kind of have you joining us today. Because we really want to kind of pay honor to your story about where you were, what you've had to overcome to kind of get where you're at, and kind of where you're trying to go in the future here, and what you're continuing to work towards. And I think that's a really inspirational story when people hear some of the challenges that you had to overcome and navigate to just kind of getting to where you are today, man. That's going to really be helpful for people that are tuning in and hearing your story. So if you're comfortable, man, if you really like to kind of just open it up, I like to kind of just open it up and let you kind of take the wheel here and kind of share with people kind of who you are, what you're doing now, and your story that's kind of led you to getting into the position of being a service to others.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So my name is Scott Browning. I have my CADC. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor. And my recovery journey has kind of inspired me to help others. I like to try to take the poison that this world has given to me and turn it into medicine for other people. That helps me use my pain, my suffering, my life experience, all the things that are perceived as negatives that I can turn back around into gifts for other people. And that helps me be more proud and maybe glad that some of these negatives have happened, because the only way out is through. And if I can push through and teach others how to do the same, then we're alleviating some human suffering.
Definitely. No, I think that's so powerful. Just kind of like even acknowledging that, hey, like try all these other ways to kind of get around it, but the only way to get through it is through it.
Yeah.
Man, how like that's just so powerful to kind of take about like what you've been through and wanting to kind of carry that gift and that wisdom and share it with other people. How has that journey been for you?
Well, it hasn't always been smooth. I've had to overcome a lot, right? Just I don't know, just to start at the beginning, I guess, right? So I grew up with an alcoholic father, kind of taught me that substances were okay to be used all day, every day. Um, when I learned what alcoholism was in sixth grade in health class, I came home that day from school and I said, "Hey, I learned what alcoholism was. Are you an alcoholic?" And he said, "Nah, I just drink beer." And to sixth grade Scott, that made all the sense in the world. I was like, well, okay, well, you sure drink a lot of beer and you drink it every day, right? Um, Fast forward to high school, I was being hazed on the baseball team. The guys I grew up with either did nothing to try to stop it or they started hazing me to be cool and accepted by the other guys on the team. So as a result, I kind of became disenfranchised with my childhood best friends who I'd grown up with, and organized team sports as a whole. I started to look for some new friends. I saw all the potheads in high school wearing tie dyes and smoking on lunch breaks and after school, and it looked like a really easy way to make some friends. So um, I told myself I wasn't ever going to use alcohol because of my dad. However, at 14, I was using cannabis daily as a response to the trauma that I experienced on the baseball team. Eventually, that grew into other substances, but still, no alcohol was my rule. Fast forward to 19, my apartment got raided by the police. I got arrested with multiple felonies. I was offered a plea bargain for some misdemeanors, which I graciously accepted. And then I was on probation for a year. So at this point in time, I had to choose as a 19-year-old, am I going to be abstinent for a year or am I going to use alcohol for a year because it can't pop on a drug test? And my answer was alcohol. So from 19 to 25, I drank every single day. I was writing novels in my bedroom at my parents' house, thinking that I was brilliant. They're going to teach my books in high schools. I'm the next great American author, right? In college, I would show up to school drunk to prove all my teachers' conceptions of alcoholics wrong because I'm an alcoholic and I'm brilliant and I'm going to be your best student. So, zero ego, right?
Right.
And then one day, my friends and the people that I drank with came to my house for an intervention. They were supposed to be learning some of my songs so we could go play a show, and instead they said that I don't even have to be drinking. It's once I find out we're going to be drinking, I change into a totally different person. I don't even have to have a drop of alcohol, and I'm just a changed individual. So, rather than stop drinking and hang out with them, I chose to drink by myself in my room. And after I graduated college, I was working in a cubicle, managing inventory, moving numbers around on a screen, driving an hour and a half to 2.5 hours for one way for my commute. Depressed, attempting suicide, going to the hospital, still drinking. And then one day my parents went to go visit my sister in Nashville for their anniversary. And I was watching the dog and I was home by myself. And I decided that I had had enough of being alive. And I went in the car in my garage and I turned the car on and closed the garage door and with a handle sitting shotgun and got drunk for what was going to be the last time in my life. And I sat there thinking about my dog and thinking about my parents. And I realized that a dead son and dog poop all over the house would be a pretty terrible anniversary present for my parents. So I turned the car off. I called my psychiatrist at the time and he said, "Are you ready to stop drinking yet?" And I said, "You know what? I think I am." And I finished the rest of what I had because I wasn't going to pour anything out. And the very next day I went to AA and I haven't drank since. So that was 25, right? I had my spiritual awakening in that car when I realized I didn't in fact want to die, right? Also when I was doing my fourth step and then when I was doing my eighth and ninth step. realizing that I'm the cause of all my own suffering, which is great, because if I'm the cause of all my own suffering, that means that I can make it stop. And then also doing that, my 8th and 9th step, and realizing that no matter what I've done and what's been done to me, some people in the world are actually going to forgive me for that stuff. And just realizing that I don't have to feel like this forever, right? It's going to take a lot of hard work to dig myself out of this hole, but it doesn't have to be this way. So, do you want to hear about kind of my path after I stopped? Do you have any questions about kind of what led me into that?
Hey, I think like what you were sharing, I just appreciate your just candid honesty and like transparency there about kind of like where you got to and where you were at, and just that moment of saying like, you know what, this isn't how I want to be living my life. And I imagine that was a thought that you would kind of had pop up in your head throughout that time period. It's just like, hey, this is not how I want to be showing up.
Yeah, and it was a really confusing thing too, because I loved substances and I loved using them. And like one of the things that I tell my patients is we use substances for a reason. It's because they work, right? They're really effective medicine. And the problem with this medicine is that somewhere along the line, we started to use it for different reasons than the original intended use, and start to experience some consequences. And then the consequences end up becoming not worth taking the medicine anymore. So I want to try to stop taking the medicine, because to me, it's not worth the consequences I'm receiving as a result of my use. However, when I try to stop, I can't. And this is the predicament that I think addicts find themselves in.
And like you said, you had that moment, that awakening, and you're like, haven't drank since. What? Like, what's helped? Like, what's been part of your way that you found to kind of support yourself and to kind of empower yourself to kind of move forward and continue walking this life and living this life of recovery?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did 90 and 90, right? I did
Nice.
AA for 2 years. And I have a debt of gratitude to AA, right? I got clean for AA. However, my one critique about AA is I don't feel like they talk about the underlying issues very well. Because, for example, don't think of a red chair. What am I thinking of? A red chair. The only time I thought about alcohol was when I went to AA meetings. Otherwise, I was not thinking about it. I'd go to a meeting, I'd think about alcohol, and then I'd get triggered. So I ended up kind of switching more into Buddhist study than AA, and that worked for me. And then when I got my first job in treatment, I found out about refuge recovery. And I really like Refuge. I love the Refuge book. I think it does a great job of holding your hand through the inventory process. But I also think that, substances fill a lot of different holes in our lives, right? Like for me, it's been my best friend. It's been my higher power. It's been my coping skill. It's been my hobby. It's been my romantic partner. It's been my creative inspiration and my muse, right? Those are like 6 things I just named off the top of my head, right? So if I think that I'm going to stop using substances, I'm going to have all those holes in my soul that I haven't filled up yet, right? And if I think that I can just stop using substances, go to a support group, whether it's AA, NA, Refuge, Celebrate Recovery, any of them, right? Like they're all great. They all work if you work them. But that's not enough, right? They could help me find some community, and it could help me find some literature that's going to help me understand why I do the things that I do. But I'm going to need more than just going to group if I want to stay clean, right? So for me, it's been therapy. Like if EMDR is appropriate, highly recommend EMDR. My inventory, doing inner child meditation with a therapist, finding meditation as a hobby and a coping skill, doing forgiveness work, radical acceptance, rock climbing, meditation, yoga, Buddhism, journaling, spending time in nature, doing self-love, mirror work, positive self-talk, daily gratitude practice, being bored on purpose, lowering my emotional baseline so the rest of life is more exciting, right? And then just giving myself time, space, and permission to feel my emotions when they come up. I mean, that's like, I spent some time making a list before this, right? But those are like, that's everything pretty much that's involved in my recovery program.
Definitely, like especially when you talk about like that inner child work, because I know that's something like you're really passionate about. You want to speak a little bit on that and kind of what that work has meant to you?
Yeah. So it's my belief, right? One of these days I'm going to write a book called We're All Just a Bunch of Kids Running Around with Our Feelings Hurt, or, a shorter version of that. But it's my belief that we carry these childhood experiences with us for a long time, and we forget about them, or we trauma block them, right? And we have children living inside of us, inside all of these painful, traumatic memories and moments, and we just pretend they don't exist. And we get so busy, like paying mortgages and having careers and raising our own kids, and keeping up with the Joneses, right? That we forget that there's a hurt child inside of us who just wants to be loved and accepted, and have some time spent with them based on what your love language is, right? So um in inner child work, we trace a problem emotion to the root cause. Now, for some people, maybe this is yesterday, or some people, maybe it's last week. For me, I mean, I've actually experienced my own birth in inner child meditation as I was tracing abandonment, right? um Seeing my mom have me as a baby and then give me to a nurse, and having the first thing in my life be, I'm not inside my mom anymore, and now I'm being given to a stranger. And baby Scott is like, what is going on? I was just inside of you, and now the first thing you're going to do is give me to a stranger. Like, that's where my abandonment issues came from. It wasn't, as I said earlier, like my high school friends leaving me, or something that happened in elementary school, or something that happened last week. It went all the way back to birth, So I think our breath and our body are the two most powerful things that we have. And in meditation, through doing this inner child work and tracing these difficult emotions, we can reconnect with this experience that created the emotion. And then we can self-soothe, reparent our own inner child, and start to heal some of our own trauma inside that meditative experience.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds like some really powerful work, man.
It's hard work, but it's good work.
Boy. Yeah. Mark, what are you thinking over there?
Well, a lot. First of all, your dad that you referred to that was an alcoholic, was that your adopted dad, or was that your birth dad?
It's my birth dad.
Okay. You do a lot of work, in the rehab centers and so forth, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit. But do you see that quite often? With like young adults that you're dealing with that are dealing with their various addictions and so forth, that they felt they got a nod because they saw one of their parents either abusing alcohol or drugs in childhood.
Yeah, I do. Right. I think I'm a fan of both nature and nurture. But I do think a lot of it's learned behavior, right?
Yeah.
Like, and addiction to more than just substances, right? Like, if all your parents do is watch TV, all you are gonna do is watch TV, right? Like, if your parents have an unhealthy diet, like you're gonna have the same thing, unless somebody teaches you how to do it differently, right? But I think from a childhood development standpoint, we're destined to imitate our parents, right? Until I don't know what age, but
Yeah.
maybe we realize they're not the role models that we hoped.
Definitely.
It's just with the story that you kind of painted there is I hear that quite a bit, and I'm thinking of one story in particular. Unfortunately, the young man's no longer with us, but that was the exact same thing his father told him. I just drink beer. And he chose not to drink, but he got into other substances and ended up passing away because one of the substances he was doing was laced with fentanyl and died of a fentanyl poisoning. He was only 31 years old.
That's tragic.
And I would talk to him about trying to get sober and try to work a program. He would always throw in my face, I'll do it when my dad does it. My dad's an addict too. My dad's at the bar every single night. So if he can do it, if he's not going to do it, why should I do it?
Yeah. So I think, like, first we have to let go of our parental resentment, right? Because nobody got the parents that they wanted. You got the parents that you got, right? So if I can forgive my parents for being who they were rather than who I wanted them to be, and then start to have some gratitude for the lessons that they did teach me, even if they weren't the lessons that I needed, right? Like, that resentment's going to keep me sick until I find some way to forgive my parents for being who they are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as far as your recovery program, I mean, you got a very diversified approach. And, I've talked about this on our podcast religiously. I'm a big believer in a diversified approach. Like, I did use AA, but I also use NAMI as well, because the reason why I would do the NAMI support groups is exactly what you just said. AA ignored the mental health component, and you walk into a meeting, I mean, it's pretty safe to say damn near 100% of the people in the room have some type of underlying mental component that's driving that particular addiction. And that's any addiction. I mean, we're talking about AA alcoholic, but I mean, it could be drugs, it could be gambling, it could be hoarding, it could be whatever. I mean, whatever your drug of choice is your drug of choice. But typically, it's driven by something that's going on underneath here, and it's a soothing or form of self medication.
Yeah, it's just a symptom, right?
Exactly, exactly. So you said you got sober at 25. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you now? How long you been sober for?
I had 10 years back in September.
Okay, that's awesome, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I respect that a lot because I know that's not easy to do at a young age, to pull yourself out of that and get sober and then have that environment of other 24, 25, 26 year olds that you're around. And I know damn well they're not sober either, and then you're trying to people, places and things, trying to have that separation, trying to have those boundaries while you're trying to maintain your sobriety. So I respect you a lot. I didn't get sober until later in life. I got 5 and I'm 50. I'm coming up on 5 years. So that's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, man, like your friends, they had that intervention, and you're just kind of like, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. You guys just aren't gonna be a part of that anymore.
Yeah.
What have those relationships kind of shifted to now that you're living a different lifestyle, man?
But to be honest, I've kind of outgrown them, and
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time together,
Right.
But it's been learning my worth and learning how to set boundaries because I never had boundaries before, right? So learning how I deserve to be treated and what makes me feel good rather than just, I mean, I don't think I'm alone in this belief, but it's my belief that all addicts are codependent, right? So rather than continue to reach for external validation all of the time, I started trying to focus my practice more on how can I be my own best friend? How can I give myself this validation? Because every time I hang out with myself, it's crazy. We do something I enjoy.
Strange how that works. And
I know, right?
As you're talking this, I'm like, who kind of like showed you this way? Or how did you discover this for yourself?
So I've had a lot of different sponsor, mentor, guides in my life, right? So my first sponsor I found, right? So when I got clean, I was living in my parents and my dad was still actively using. And every time I went in the fridge to grab something to drink, there's a 24 case of Bud Light. Now I'm not going to relapse on Bud Light, but every time I went in the pantry, there's bottles of dark liquor, and that was my drink of choice, right? And every single time I wanted to get something to eat or something to drink, I had to say no to alcohol. And I was talking about this at a AA meeting, and this guy raised his hand and he said, I'm a bartender. This is the best thing I ever did for my recovery. And I said, you're nuts. And he's like, no, seriously. Every night I go to work, I watch people blow their money and act like idiots. And every night I get reminded why I stopped drinking alcohol. And I just said, holy cow. This is the guy who's going to teach me how to say no to my dad's alcohol, right? So I believe that programs of avoidance don't work. Because what happens if I haven't drank for 2 years? I also haven't seen alcohol for 2 years. And now I see it for the first time and I have to say no. I'm going to have a pretty hard time saying no. But if I'm exposed to it, maybe not every day, and maybe not before I have a sponsor and before I can confidently execute my exit plan, right? But putting myself I'm a musician. I play shows at bars all the time. What am I going to do? Stop being a musician, right? Rather than avoid it, I'm going to put myself in a position to say no, because saying no reinforces that no desire and reminds me that, hey, I didn't want to do this thing because it ruined my life and brought me to a point where I like to joke, all alcohol ever did is make me fat and sad, right? So as long as I can remember that and keep that in my mind, that no matter what is going on, and this gets into distress tolerance too, but no matter what is going on, I know how I can make this worse. I might not know how I can make it better, but I know for sure how I can make this worse.
It's funny you mentioned that because, and I haven't done this in a while, but there was a hot minute where I did a little security at bars, and I had the exact same answer to people. They said, "How could you do that if you're in recovery?" I said, "To be honest with you, it helps me stay sober." I said, "Because you see the same freaking people every weekend. They're all loaded by the end of the night. You see these people acting like idiots, starting fights and stuff like that. And I ended up, my drug of choice, as we talked about earlier, was, opiate pain pills, but I was an alcoholic and a heavy drinker. But going into recovery, my disdain was really towards the opiate pain pills because of all the destruction it caused in my family, and lost a job, lost my wife, all that stuff, right? But in sobriety and recovery, my disdain has actually grown more towards the alcohol side because of all the things that I've seen. There's a lot of guys security that I keep in touch that are literally sober. I mean, I just went to a show to go see a cover band about 3, 4, a place I'd never been to before. And I was talking to the security guard. We were just kind of BSing a little bit. And he was only 34 years old. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I haven't had a sip of alcohol in like almost 3 years. I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm like, did you have a problem? He goes, hell no, I didn't have a problem. He goes, I don't even want to even think about it after all the stuff that I see here doing security.
Yeah.
He's like, I see people ruining their lives every single weekend. He goes, and I decided to quit on my own. So, I mean, that's really popular. You hear that quite a bit, actually.
It's poison, it's poison that wants you to think you need it and you're better with it.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it legitimately is poison the way your body breaks it down inside of you when it metabolizes it, and people don't even. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a more powerful way to kind of reframe it, because a lot of times we're kind of suffering, we're in pain, we're hurting, and we're looking at alcohol as like, hey, this is going to be the solution. This is going to cure it all, fix it. When in a sense, like, no, it just, there's not a situation that's occurred that it can't make worse. And that just kind of prolongs and feeds it. And I love the fact, Scott, you kind of brought up the idea of a program of avoidance, right? Like not being effective, because it's just empowering the very thing that you're trying to remove and not have show up in your life through just trying to actively avoid it. And it's just like almost like having like an ex, and you're like, now my social circle has changed. Now the places I go have changed because they go there. And I sure as hell don't want to see them. And then what happens?
Can't grocery shop at the same place, can't listen to this band anymore. It's like, I'm not trying to lose things I like because something happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then what happens the moment you see him? And it's like, oh, you're not supposed to be here. It's just like,
yeah,
I'm just overwhelmed and flustered and set up. And now that is no way for my best thinking to be showing up, because when I'm overwhelmed, I'm not thinking my best. I'm not acting my best. Right. It's all about just get out and get through this, through whatever means necessary. And that doesn't always mean that we're acting in our own best interest in those moments either. So I love the fact that you've kind of been able to build this, like Marc was saying, and like you shared, man, like this very diversified approach that's really empowered you to kind of, really tap into whatever resources might be helpful at those moments to really help you continue moving forward and living the life you want to be living.
Thank you.
That's the piece now. Like, I'm just kind of curious for you, man. Like, what do you notice is different about the way that you approach the day versus how you were approaching it back when you were in your active addiction, man?
Yeah. So, like, I have a daily routine and a structure and a schedule that I made for myself, right? I think a lot of people are triggered by unstructured downtime. And I think that that's my biggest source of progress, is how I handle my downtime now. It's not a threat anymore. It's something that I enjoy and really look forward to. But to me, it really comes down to distress tolerance. So I like to call it raising the bar, just because it sounds cooler than distress tolerance, right?
That's what it's all about.
the way that I kind of describe it is like, distress exists both positively and negatively, right? When I have a bad day, that's distress. But also when I have a good day, I want to celebrate. And how do I celebrate? By using substances, right? So if I have a bad day and I don't use substances, just like a blank base level bad day, right? But I don't use, it's going to take more than just a bad day for me to internally justify returning to use, because that's all return to use is. I like to distinguish between relapse and return to use, right? Relapse happens in my brain, and maybe in my body, and maybe in my heart and my soul. The return to use is when I actually put the physical substance in my body, right? So like, if I don't return to use over a base level negative distress, now I can't internally justify a return to use because of that same experience. I've gotten through it once. It is no longer an excuse. I can get through it again, right? And then positively, if I have a good day, I want to celebrate my good days by using substances. So if I can have a good day and not use, now that takes a little bit more. it's not an excuse for me to justify celebrating with substances. So like in my own life, I've been able to raise the bar up bit by bit to the point where, like, from a negative standpoint, I've had a friend shoot himself in the head, right? Like, I've been divorced and lost my house. I've been homeless numerous times, all since I stopped using substances. These are all experiences that I've had in recovery, right? But I didn't return to use over those. From a positive standpoint, my sister got married, I became a homeowner, right? Like, I've had numerous positive experiences as well that also weren't triggering enough for me to justify a return to use over those. So it's just kind of been that holistic approach, but then also not hiding and leaning into the distress and the discomfort, because now, with everything that I've made it through in my recovery, pretty much the only thing that I think would be threatening for me to return to use is like an early onset terminal medical diagnosis, right? Like if somebody's like, hey, you have cancer, you're going to die in 6 months, I'd be like, oh man, I'm going to think about using a substance now so that I don't have to deal with this, right? But I've also met somebody who said in an inpatient program, he'd been clean for 20 days with COPD. And he said, I asked him if that was triggering and if he was worried about returning to use after he left the facility. He said, no, I'm curious to feel how I'm curious to feel what it's going to be like to die sober. And that guy blew my mind. And now I think I can do it.
No.
Right. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I mean, the last podcast that just dropped, we talked about living a life of service, and you're all in living a life of service. I mean, you got the counseling degree, you're working at a recovery center, you're seeing people coming in pretty much at their rock bottom. You're seeing the transformation of them, over a period of time, depending how long their treatment is for and so forth. That Can you talk a little bit about that and how that helps you maintain sobriety? Especially, I mean, one, it's a reminder of where you came from. This is what I talked about the last podcast. And two, you know, a lot of these people, these patients coming in, they lack a mentor or sometimes a male mentor or what have you, and they kind of put you on a pedestal, and you feel like you have to lead by example, right? I mean, at least I do. I mean, I got to hold myself accountable and practice what I preach. I don't want to be a hypocrite, And that has helped me a lot, going through stressful times when I might have a thought here and there. Okay. But the other thing is, too, is what I found is that the further you get into recovery, the more distant that memory comes of what that rock bottom felt like or what those withdrawals felt like or what have you. But when I go speak at a hospital and see somebody going through some form of withdrawal, and I see the look in their eyes and I see the desperation in their eyes, it brings me right back to where I was. It's always a reminder of where I came from. I mean, do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I do definitely. And also just like moving up in the field and wanting to do more, and then seeing kind of the way that facilities work and facilities treat people has been eye-opening as well, right? And that's been kind of what has motivated me to start my own private practice. Now, I don't have a 4-letter degree. I'm not a therapist. I don't provide therapy, but I do provide coaching for individuals. And this is kind of like, I've worked at 3 different for-profit addiction facilities now, and this recovery coaching practice is like my version of what I wish a facility did. So like I drive to my clients, they don't have to go anywhere. So that removes a barrier. I have a therapy dog. We go for hikes in the forest. We meditate, we talk inner child, talk recovery, right? Healing power of nature, exercise, right? Because we're going for hikes, being outside, having the sun hit your skin. It's just like education surrounding healthy diets and more than just this is what a substance is and this is how it affects your life, right? Just like you've said earlier, the holistic approach, right? But working with people in early recovery has been incredibly motivating. And like I said earlier, it's also a chance to turn my pain into medicine for others. So that helps me remember where I came from. And I'm not really shy. Like I try to have good professional boundaries when I'm using self-disclosure and do it appropriately, right? But when I'm self-disclosing, that kind of brings me back in and reminds me too. So working with people in early recovery, but then also like the targeted self-disclosure kind of helps me not forget what it was like, because I don't I don't ever want to forget what it was like.
And the thing about it is, I mean, you mentioned not having a degree, but you have something that no textbook can teach you, which is this live life experience, the school of hard knocks. Hard knocks. You've been there, man. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, and this is pretty well documented in these podcasts. I talked to a lot of therapists, a lot of doctors, a lot of psychiatrists, but it was somebody like you that had a live life experience that shared their story with me that provided a little hope and inspiration that I did not have after coming off a major overdose. Okay. And I took that hope and inspiration that led me to sitting in that chair, this chair today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, us being on the streets, educating people, trying to help people, trying to live that life of service, regardless if we don't have that degree or not. I think a lot of the subject matter that we're bringing to the table is just as valuable, because we can relate to the addict or the alcoholic because of what we went through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're uniquely not that people who don't have lived experience can't provide good help, right? Like I've received fantastic help from people who had zero lived experience with addiction. Maybe they had family experience, right? But one of the things that I try to preach is I can learn from any teacher, right? If you're humble and if you have some willingness, like I took a job for a year and a half in an elementary school to reconnect with my inner child, and I learned from those kids probably more than they learned from me, right? So I think if we're looking for lessons, we can receive them anywhere, right?
Agree with that. Yep, for sure. No, it's great, man. I mean, it really is. And I like what you're doing, with the coaching and things like that. I mean, but frankly, that's something that I dream about. I mean, that's something that I would like to get into. Justin and I have actually talked about that.
Thank you.
The fact that you're doing it, again, I have a lot of respect for you, man.
I have some imposter syndrome because, like, having sponsored and mentored people, sometimes it feels like I'm requesting money for something that I've done for free, and it feels unethical to me. And that's kind of my own personal struggle that I'm dealing with now as I'm starting this private practice, is like asking somebody for money for something I've done for free
That
before.
kind of holds me back. I've even talked to Justin. Sometimes I feel a little dirty. I don't know why. I just do.
Right. But I mean, we live in the world. We need a job. That's kind of, I have a small business coach, right? And this is the feedback that she gives me is, hey, you have a skill set. You've worked long and hard to develop this skill set, and every human being needs a job.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're right. 100%. So a lot of my friends are the ones that are kind of pushing me, and they're like, "Man, you spend so many hours on this, and you get so many late nights talking to people, trying to help them. They reach out to you. There's got to be some way that you can get, somewhat, compensated for it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like obviously like the driving force behind it is like it's well intended, right? Like there's a compassion component, there's an empathy component. It's just that
Absolutely.
desire to try and help somebody kind of get out of the spot that they're in that's not bringing them what they would be hoping for.
Yeah.
And if you could do that for free and your lights were put on, like, and you didn't have to worry about your rent, like that's the ideal. And unfortunately, you got to pay your bills and you got to be able to buy food to support yourself. So
Yeah.
that's the component where it's like, the intention behind it can remain very positive, very much aligned with your values and your goals. And just like any other service provided, like you said, like there is going to be a cost associated. I think that's the part where, and I think the customer knows that, right? Like people know this, and as long as you're genuinely delivering it with care, compassion, and support, that you don't tend to get much pushback there.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, this has been an incredible conversation. I guess the last thing I want to ask you, Scott, before we kind of get off here, if there was feedback or advice that you could give to your younger you, a message like kind of tapping into that inner child piece, right? Look at everybody's faces, just
We know where you're going with it.
I went off.
You're reading my mind. You're all mind readers now. Fantastic. Where'd you guys develop that skill? What bit of advice or feedback would you tell your younger you?
One day, this is all going to make sense. The things that are happening to you are happening because you need to learn some lessons. And one day you're going to take the lessons that you learn and you're going to help people with them.
Nice. Beautiful.
Thanks.
That's a great answer.
Got Marc's approval. What else more? What more could you want?
Yeah.
Outside of a salmon colored medium cutoff tee.
I'm fully expecting the salmon shirt now.
For me,
Yes.
tank top. Salmon tank top just for Justin. Justin will wear a salmon, what little button up with the little alligator right here that you always wear or that you've worn. I'll wear the salmon tank top. That'd be more like midsummer though.
So what you say is hold your breath. It's not coming next episode. Awesome. So, well,
because I know they got to do it now.
It's true. It's true, Marc. So, Marc, any final words, man, before we call it a wrap?
I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. I respect your journey. I respect you even more for all the work that you're doing in the community. I'm glad I had a chance to know you a little bit. We just met very briefly for the first time prior to the recording of this podcast. But I'm hoping that we continue to talk a little bit outside of this because your vision, my vision, your story, my story, there are a lot of similarities there, man. So I appreciate Justin organizing the podcast and inviting you on as a guest for sure.
Yeah, I have a lot of gratitude for both of you guys for letting me on here and just letting me use my voice, right? And talk a little bit about some things that I'm passionate about. Really appreciate you guys and what you're doing with this platform. So do you mind if I plug my private practice real quick?
Go right ahead. I feel like it's the least we could do, man. Go ahead.
Cool.
Share with the world.
All right. So the business name is Nobility Seeker. You can look it up. It's got a website. We've got social media. I post affirmations there for free on Instagram. So if you need just a little positive messaging every weekend, I do a post. And then, we've got social media. We've got the website. I'm giving away some sessions for free, doing some recovery coaching at Stages of Transformation in Crystal Lake. I also do group meditation sessions for clinicians at different places. So if you're in a helping field, let me help you help the people that you help, and I'll come in and do a group meditation session with my therapy dog for your staff too. So pretty easy to find me on social media, and would love to connect with both of you on there as well as anybody who's listening. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah.
And we appreciate everybody tuning in to join and listening to the wisdom that Scott had to share today. And so these podcasts drop on the 1st and the 15th of every month. You can find them on all your podcast platforms. If there's any topics, any feedback that you all have, feel free to reach out. Marc is more than open to wardrobe suggestions, so feel free to let him know what you'd like to see him.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to see what comments we're going to know.
Oh,
thanks.
I just can't wait till next episode, Marc, personally. But as always, we always appreciate everybody tuning in, listening to these episodes, and really learning from the wisdom that our guests have to share with everybody. So until next episode, we appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, be well.